Hey guys, Felicia here. Happy Sunday. Before we start the show, I just want to remind you that there are free career management guides that I have created from all the great show content that you have come to know and love. So head on over to trillandba.com, sign up for career freebies, and you will have access to all the PDFs that we have created so far and all the new PDFs we're working on now. So head on over to trillandba.com and get your career guides today. Now, let's start the show.
Welcome to the Trill MBA show. For those of you who are regular listeners, you'll notice I am not Felicia. I am Erayna Sargent, and I have the lucky opportunity to do a takeover for a very important message about burnout and practical ways to address it. Thank you to Felicia as she is moving her life across the country to give me this opportunity. So first, wanted to be really excited. We're going to talk about our new campaign for Hooky Day 2019. October 22nd. It's a Tuesday. We are encouraging working professionals across this country to take the day off and repurpose it for their own self-care.
What?
Well, stress is the health epidemic of the 21st century, as deemed by the World Health Organization. But if you've looked around, you'll notice that burnout is rampant, which is really interesting because I ran across a fact the other week where it's 768 million unused vacation days in 2018. 768 unused vacation days. So it's really interesting because as we talk about stress and burnout and how there's not enough time in the day, what I'm starting to understand is we're often choosing not to take this time and forgetting that work will often be there. And I'm not saying don't do your responsibilities, don't pass in that big project. The whole idea about Hooky Day is bigger than the day itself. It's really a campaign that is intended to promote immediate intentional actions that one can do to relax, repair, and strengthen their mental health. So I'm really excited. This is the first of many exciting things that we're working on. So you can be like the group in Kansas City who has a planned trip to the pumpkin patch, or a group in Detroit that's going to visit a new yoga studio, or the business owner in Chicago that gave her team a day off to really focus on their self-care. The opportunities are endless. And Hooky Day isn't about something prescribed. It's really about replenishing the part of you that is running on E. Time off is one of the easiest ways that you can start to repair your mental health and to add some balance back into your life. So if you have some unused vacation days, unused sick days, take one day, repurpose it for yourself, and do what you need, whether it's read a book, journal, visit the museum, take an art class. It's all about taking time, prioritizing your own mental health. You can learn more about this on our website, hookywellness.com. You can take the pledge and be subscribed to our weekly newsletter, which will incorporate and provide you mental health education, as well as some inspiration on what to do on your day off, in addition to some discounts with our partners for it. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at our handle, Hooky Wellness. So as we dig into it, what are we going to talk about? Today is going to be a very transparent show. This is a show that hopefully you'll recognize some things about yourself. You'll get some tips on how you can continue in your wellness journey or start. For myself, vulnerability has been a part of my healing journey, and I'm really hoping that what I share today and what we talk through will help someone else work through their own situations and recognize some of their opportunities to improve the current situation, to make some changes, or to influence their community around them in a positive way. What I realized in this journey is that while all of our experiences are personal, they're not always that unique. Everyone has something that has happened to them. Life happens to everyone in different extremes. And so there's no shame in recognizing that you have challenges and life isn't perfect. It is through this recognition that we'll be able to build to a better tomorrow. We'll be able to have better empathy and increase our communication with ourselves and with our family, our friends, and in our relationships. So today, I'm going to talk about a little bit who I am. Why am I here to talk about mental health and wellness? What gives me the right? And I'll be joined later in the show by my own personal therapist. who will help us demystify the therapeutic process and mental health and what to expect as you embark on this elusive, highly stigmatized space of talk therapy. So jumping right in, who the heck am I? Well, until recently, I've always introduced myself in a very business MBA manner. I'm a brand marketer and innovator with over 14 years experience building consumer-focused brands across top companies and some of America's favorite brands. I have an MBA from the Kelley School of Business, like Felicia, where I was an MLT alum and consortium fellow. And on the side, I'm a small business consultant, nonprofit founder, life coach, wife, sister, daughter, friend, mentor, et cetera, facts, credentials, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how many of you are used to introducing yourselves in the same way, but so many of us are trained that we lose sight of who we really are as a person beyond those careers. And I've been in that journey over the past 2 years of really understanding who the heck I am and what I want to be in this world. So 2 years ago is where my personal journey started. And I'm really thankful because it helped me figure out who I am and what I want to contribute to this world. It's a really funny story. My husband, it's not that funny. My husband and I, every New Year's, we set goals for ourselves. Instead of resolutions, we're like, what do we want to achieve this year? What do we want to achieve together? What do we want to achieve in our careers? And for me, I came up with the brilliant idea about 8 years ago of what is our ultimate career goal? Only to be followed by crickets on my end because I didn't know. And so it's through my own experience with burnout that I've started to unpack what this is and who I am. This journey was the catalyst for me transitioning into entrepreneurship. And now I'm the founder of Hooky Wellness, which is a mental health brand that is focused on bringing transparency and support to the mental health process. It was through this journey that I got a sense of self, of what I have to offer in this world. And had it not been for this experience, I could still be wandering aimlessly in life. So this journey reached a new level about 5 months ago when I started to go to therapy on a regular. It was through therapy I recognized my patterns in myself, in my family, and that has allowed me to open up different communication channels, once again, with myself, my family, my husband, my friends, understand why some things are repeated in life, understand some experience through my career, as well as understanding how I can start to break some of those generational curses and really influence those around me. So as I've gone through this, I've started to recognize, who am I really? With that, I was born and raised on the east side of Detroit. And so hustling hard is in my blood. I come from a blue collar family where my parents worked extremely hard. It illustrated the importance of working hard every day. So my dad worked at a supplier of the big three in a heating cooling plant where he worked extremely long hours. And I remember getting up late on Friday nights, waiting for him to get home. My mom was an office manager that shuffled us to school and our extracurricular activities. Shout out to DAPSAP, our Detroit pre-college engineering program. And my parents did all this while managing their side hustle of craft shows every single weekend. It was so much a part of my childhood. I remember setting up the booths every weekend, spending my weekend selling handmade crafts like baby blankets, wooden clocks, and other items that we call like boo-boo bunnies. Don't ask. And so from an early age, I was conditioned to work and keep working. For me, academics and working was my thing from the start. As soon as I could work, I had multiple jobs because in my mind, it's what I was quote unquote supposed to do. I still remember the early years in high school going from Motown photography, where I helped to select backdrops for Detroit Public School seniors to take their pics. Then I would go to my shift at Panera Bread. And then on the weekends, I would pull shifts at Wet Seal. I might have just aged myself, but don't judge me. I kept this up in college where I had 18 credits, a job in admissions, and damn near a full-time job as a server. And so you can see I got this like working hard thing down. It was to the point that my friends after college were taking bets on how long I would be okay working just one job. Well, funny thing is, I don't know who really won it because I just decided to start a nonprofit, which technically wasn't a job, but you get the point. So over the past 14 years, I've built my career in brand management, innovation, marketing strategy, and worked my way up the corporate ladder. And I didn't have a ton of major issues until about 2 years ago when this advice that my dad had consistently given me from a young age came to pass. He would always warn me that I was quote unquote burning the candle on both ends. I had no idea what that meant until 2 years ago where the candle met in the middle and I became completely burned out. So for those of you who are like, what the heck is burnout? That doesn't make any sense. I don't believe that's a real thing. Well, the World Health Organization believes that it is, and it's officially become a medical condition this year. Burnout is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It is characterized by 3 dimensions. 1, feelings of energy depletion and exhaustion. 2, increased mental distance from one's job or feeling of negativism or cynicism related to one's job. And reduced professional efficacy. And for anyone who is a type A, this is a very challenging space to be, because from personal experience, I can attest to no matter what you do, if you do not get the help that you need while you're in it, you cannot get out of this by yourself. And so that's why I was really excited to bring Kortney on today to talk about the therapy process. Because in my experience, I grew up in a Black household where therapy was not something we talked about. Mental health was not something we talked about. We worked, and we worked some more. And you figured it out along the way. You don't complain. You just work and wait for things to manifest, because that's how life works, or so we thought. And so when I became burnt out, I started down the road of working to secure mental health support. And this was truly, I had started it about 7 years ago. This was a 7-year journey, but when I started to go through burnout, it amplified my need to find this support. And I became intimately familiar with all of the customer issues that exist, from not understanding how to start, to what are these acronyms that are listed, like I know how to filter, to what do I look for in a therapist, to getting appointments where I show up and I'm waiting in a hallway and have to sit on the floor because my therapist isn't there. And so I believe, especially for those who are suffering from severe stress and anxiety and other mental health issues, you deserve to have a premier consumer experience. And so I'm really excited to move forward in my journey with my business, Hooky Wellness, and work to alleviate some of those pain points. And as a 2-time burnout survivor, I am really on a mission to help those people combat stress and burnout. Now, what I've recognized is that in the world of mental health, it's on a spectrum. There is the common day stress and anxiety all the way to severe ailments, which cause for a hospitalization. And so there's a lot of work in people who are better equipped to speak to those further extremes. I'm really focused on how do we prevent? How do we get in those early stages of stress, anxiety, and burnout before it turns into extreme depression or extreme anxiety? Because once you hit those points, it's difficult to come back. So how do we start this conversation at the front before it turns into something that is even harder to get out of? So as I said, Hooky Day is the first thing, October 22nd. It's a Tuesday. It is a day that you can just take to start to reframe your mind and to really prepare mentally for the holidays that are to come. Because Halloween is not too far away. And once Halloween starts, we all know that the rest of the year is a wrap. So it's a regular Tuesday. It's really meant to reinforce how prioritizing your mental health can be as simple as just taking some time. So if you can't do October 22nd, what day can you do? Block your calendar. Can you take an hour out of one day? Maybe it's a matter of putting a walk into your calendar every day where you can start to add some stillness and just some room to breathe and to think. Maybe it's starting your day with meditation. Is how you are going to play hooky every so often. So hooky, I believe, is more of a mindset, because the truest definition of hooky is to stay away from work or school without permission or explanation. And while we firmly believe that everyone should work hard and continue to contribute to their career and grow, hooky is more of a mindset of how are you going to prioritize your mental health? What are you going to do to make sure that you're on your to-do list and on your calendar? Because so many times we are so focused on our career objectives and goals that we forget that our mental health has a significant impact on what we're able to produce and what we're able to achieve. So really excited to have this conversation with you guys today, to share a little bit more about my journey, to have Kortney jump on and join us in the conversation to demystify mental health and therapy, I'll share more about my journey and my conversation with Kortney when we come back from this short break.
Hey guys, Felicia here. I just want to let you guys know that I am back in corporate. Yes, I got a new job. So I've been moving and I started work and things are good. Well, as of this recording, it was day one. But things are awesome, and I want you to know I'm back in the trenches with you, so I will have more great content coming soon. In the meantime, you will get great episodes like this one where Erayna takes over, or you'll also hear some of the best of season 2 with my editor, Chris, remixing episodes to make them even more impactful. So get excited. Keep in there. You can do this. Have a great Sunday, a great week. And if you need me, hit me up at ask@trillmba.com. I love you guys. I will be talking to you soon.
All right, welcome back to the Trill MBA podcast with the Burnout takeover, because so many of us are going through it. So we're going to jump back in, and I want to welcome Kortney Carr to the conversation. Welcome, Kortney.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for talking to me after hours, after our session. I'm really excited. So Kortney is a licensed clinical social worker who is based in Kansas City. I'll give you a quick bio about Kortney. So Kortney has been working in the mental health field since 2004, where she worked in the residential setting, providing direct care services to youth ages 5 through 18. After obtaining her master's degree in social work in 2007, Kortney began to provide individual and family therapy services to families engaged in the Division of Social Services, as well as youth who had come in contact with the juvenile justice system. Kortney has years of experience facilitating individual, group, and family therapy services and working with co-occurring disorders, including substance abuse and eating disorders. Kortney currently works with community partners to facilitate workshops to assist in bringing awareness and providing education regarding mental health. In 2013, Kortney, along with a friend, had a vision of opening their own private practice. This vision now goes by the name of A Life's Journey. At A Life's Journey, Kortney provides individual, group, and family therapy services to individuals of all ages from all walks of life. Kortney is currently focused on growing her expertise and services offered at A Life's Journey. Everyone has their own story, their own journey. I'm here to help you with yours, and someone helped me through mine. So thank you, Kortney, for joining us today. Well, thank you, Kortney. Is there anything you want to add on to that bio?
Well, nothing I want to add on to the bio, but it was just interesting to hear you read it, and I was listening to you give your explanation of who you are and how you introduce yourself, and then your comments about how we often introduce ourselves from that professional viewpoint. And so your comment, along with listening to my bio, it just seemed like it was a lot. And so I was wondering, like, why is all that information needed? Is it necessary? And the reality is people don't really probably care that much. And it's more so probably our focus to prove ourselves to others. Mm-hmm. And so, as we're talking about like burnout and stress, oftentimes that sense of perfectionism is rooted within burnout. And so it just made me think about that.
That's really interesting. So what would you say is a little bit deeper of who you are as a person and like your philosophy when it comes to therapy?
So my philosophy about therapy essentially is, I think it kind of stated in my bio, I ultimately just want people in general, but specifically people who look like me, to engage in therapy because it is helpful. We have this cultural connotation behind therapy and mental health, and it greatly stigmatizes the concept of therapy, and we don't engage like we should. Mm-hmm. So as far as my philosophy, it's just really about making people comfortable and building healthy individuals, families, and communities.
Awesome.
If I was to take myself outside of that professional identity, who I am is me. Like, I'm eclectic, I'm weird, I'm goofy, I'm a sister, an aunt. I love my nieces and nephews. Very family oriented, love to travel. That's me.
I love it. So today I wanted to talk about how does this whole therapy thing work? And so I'll be sharing a little bit about some things high level that have come up as it can illustrate some to others, but really excited to have you join me in this conversation because I am not a therapist. I am not trying to be a therapist. I am a huge mental health advocate, and I do recognize that in sharing my story, it can help some people, as I said, recognize theirs. But I always am very focused on what's the evidence back, what's the foundational part of it that people need to know, because this is a specialized discipline that people spend years in school for. And so it's very important to have that balance.
Yeah. What is therapy? Therapy is difficult to explain for a lot of different reasons, which also may be part of the reason as to why people are hesitant about it. Medicine tends to be a little bit more straightforward. Medical doctors, they tend to be a little bit more straightforward. But when we talk about therapists, we're talking often about things that we can't see. So we work with the things that we can't necessarily see all the time. We're talking about brain communication, body communication, all of those things. But ultimately, therapy is a relationship. Mm-hmm. It's a weird relationship, but it's a relationship because there's this balance between like maintaining professionalism, but there's also this balance of being a person. Like you said, it's a very vulnerable relationship. I can go into my doctor's office and I can tell her that I have pain here, or I don't have pain there, or everything's fine, I have no concerns. And that's, maybe the end of it. It becomes a little bit more vulnerable when you have like more serious medical conditions going on. But the nature of a therapy relationship is vulnerable from beginning to end, because you're coming in, you're seeing me or someone like me, and I'm asking you every question in the world about your personal life and who's in your life and who's not in your life and why and what are you feeling and what's sex look like for you, what substances do you use, and those are not things that we often talk about or that we're comfortable talking about because there's a sense of or a fear of that someone's going to judge me based on how I answer these questions. So it's a very vulnerable relationship. So you have to have that trust within your therapist in order to have any success or willingness to open up and be vulnerable in order to process and move forward.
Why don't we pick up where we left off last session?
All right.
How are things going with Michelle?
Couldn't be better. Working on some of our troubled spots.
That bitch is crazy!
I need you to express your own emotions.
Why you telling him to get angry, dog? That's my job, okay? I need this, man. I got a wife and kids.
I want you to take this pillow and pretend it's Michelle and tell it exactly how you feel.
Hi, Michelle.
You know what? I said I got this, man. Ain't no reason for you to get angry, man. Bitch, why you gotta take the comforter every night? It's cold as shit in the White House this time of year. Damn!
Okay, let's forget the pillow being Michelle for a minute. Why don't we say it's one of your adversaries in the Republican Party? Now just punch the pillow and let your anger out.
No, brother, I got this. No worries, brother, all right? This little motherfuckers. You motherfucking elephant motherfuckers, yeah. You motherfuckers trying to fuck up my healthcare plan, huh? Is that what you trying to do? These niggas, you fuck my shit up, huh? Yeah, and you know what?
All right, so what I love in our relationship is that we've found a nice balance where it makes me feel safe to open up. I know that it's in a safe zone and that we can also recognize each other as people. I think that is something that most people should seek out, that space where they feel comfortable. But what would you say as people are looking for therapists? Like, I do believe like the relationship that we were able to develop might be a little different and unique, and I am way more open to it. But what would you say from an expectations of relationship should people have as they start to engage with therapists?
I think that sense of safety and level of comfort is a must. So if you're not comfortable, talking to your therapist, or if you don't feel safe in conversation or interaction with your therapist, it's not a good fit. You may not know that after the first session, or you may know that after the first session, but that's something that has to be there. Therapists are people too. One thing that I'm very open and transparent about is that we all come with our own experiences, our own values, our own biases, our own assumptions. And so that would be an indicator, or usually a reason as to why someone may not feel comfortable with the therapist. If they are not able to, as a therapist, I'm not able to separate my own value systems, belief systems, separate from my work with someone, that can really impact the relationship. Someone coming into therapy may not be able to identify that's what's going on, but you're going to be able to tell it in how someone communicates with you, their tone. We pick up on those things. So that's definitely an important piece.
Okay.
I think it's the biggest piece, actually.
I agree. I've started relationships with a number of therapists, especially highly driven because I keep moving around the country. So I have to keep starting over, which is a lot of fun. So I'm intimately familiar with the startup process here. But it is that interpersonal connection and like just talking to people in that first session can work wonders. So one question I have for you in this space is like, what are 3 questions you think that everyone should ask when they're interviewing a therapist? Because that's how I view it. And I think everyone should view it, but tell me if you think differently. Like that first 2 sessions, you're interviewing like this person who is going to be in your life and know some of your deepest, darkest things. So what are some of those things that you should ask in the upfront to evaluate if this is the partnership you want?
That's a good question because I don't think anyone I don't think oftentimes people come in viewing it as such. We don't go into therapy with the thought process that we're interviewing them as they're interviewing us. So that's a difficult question because my mind automatically goes to kind of like the professional answers for that. Of course, like a professional answer would be like asking about their experience and their modality base to see if it matches what you're looking for. Of course, you don't want someone who only works with children and you're an adult, that's not something that you probably would want.
When you say modality, what does that mean?
Like the techniques that they use or their framework that they base their therapy off of. So like me, I tell people, my focus is usually, or my expertise is in the realm of trauma. Someone else's, we have different focus areas. Some people may, their focus or their modality of choice may be like cognitive behavior therapy or solution focused therapy. I use like trauma informed techniques or like EMDR techniques. So that's something that's important because someone may not be trained in a modality or technique that you may be looking for, may benefit from. So
how do I know what I need?
Well, see, and so that I thought about that because oftentimes we don't know what we need. Like it's easy for me to say, I can identify what I need. I shouldn't say easy, but maybe easier because I'm a trained therapist. But for someone else, you probably don't know necessarily what you need. So in that situation, it takes me to more of what I would say is not the professional perspective or response. And that makes it a little bit more difficult. I don't know if I can answer that question. I guess I would actually ask you as someone who has been in therapy, like what questions or what's important for you to know about your therapist?
Yeah. So when I really what really drove me to get connected with you and in general, I knew that I was experiencing symptoms of stress, anxiety, depression, and things in that realm. And so when I started to look for a therapist, that was the type of experience that I was looking for. Also, as a Black woman, I just wanted a Black woman because there are certain nuances that I didn't feel like explaining.
Right.
Now, I say that, not saying I'll never go to a person of another ethnicity. I have no problem with that. It's more of their understanding of the experiences that I have and recognizing the connections between them. So I think that I actually, my partner and my head of therapist ops for Hooky Wellness is a white woman, and she is very well aware. And I love it because she offers me different perspectives that I hadn't even known. But when I started my journey, I started with your traditional, okay, go to your insurance website. And then I was like, what are all these filters? I have no idea. Like, and we'll get into that in a second. I was like, I don't know what these letters mean. Like, I want a therapist. Like, where's that filter? Yeah. So I started to really filter down on anxiety, depression, stress, and then location were like the big things. My assumption was that anyone on that site, like on my insurance site, should be able to provide the service that I needed. And then I went from there. So that was the first start. And then because I was already stressed out, I stopped down that path because I didn't have the bandwidth to keep going, because that is a journey in itself. So I was lucky. I was able to leverage my EAP program at work, so my employee assistance program. And we had a program where you can call them, say what type of support you're needing for, or what you're trying to work through, which is the anxiety, depression, stress. And say if there's any prerequisites, like I wanted a woman of color within certain distance. And then they actually did some of the research for me, and then followed up with like, here's the phone numbers and you can contact them. So I was able to go through that, which alleviated some of the pain and work, because I was already overburdened and overstretched in my regular life. Right. That like many people, and what I'm recognizing is I became very bottom of my list. Like I was low on my priorities, but it was exactly at that point that I needed to be higher. And so then we got connected, and I felt that we clicked from the start. I was also very transparent in the first day in saying, I'm here for a purpose. This is my purpose and this is what I need. And I appreciated your response of like, well, okay, we're just gonna go. Because I'm very like action oriented. So I was looking for how you responded to what I said I needed and my approach, and to see if you would push me, ask certain questions, and be able to read between the lines of the somewhat bullshit of what I'm saying sometimes, and like give me the occasional side eye that has caused me to be like, I mean, I said that, but what I really meant was. So I was looking for that interpersonal connection. I tried virtual therapy. I made it 1 week and got tired of texting because that just came with more stress for me. It works for some. I have a couple friends that like rave about it and it's changed their lives. And so it's like, that's great for some, but I wanted a person that I could sit across from, have a conversation that could call me to the carpet like I would expect my friends to do.
Right. And I think that's the important perspective versus the answer for me, because I honestly rarely know why someone on the other end feels like that we're a good fit.
It's good to know.
Yeah, we don't know that information. We just know if people come back or not, or if, people continue to come, or, things like that. And so I think that is the important piece, is to some extent, even though if you may not know what you need, that it goes back to that relationship. If you can develop that relationship and feel like that person can meet your needs, that's what's important.
Yeah. And can you speak to, I'm aware like sometimes therapists will refer you to others if they can't fit your needs, or can you speak to that?
Yeah. So like I have a situation now where I am recommending a referral out because one, it's a child, and though I have years of experience working with children, it's younger than my preference. Mm-hmm. But then two, on top of that, I'm pretty positive that this person has a diagnosis or a co-occurring diagnosis of autism. And that is outside of my scope of practice from the perspective of, yes, I am aware of, autism spectrum diagnoses. Yes, I'm aware of potential best practices to address, but that is not something that I have actively worked with consistently enough to feel like that I am the best person, where there are plenty of people out here who have years and years of experience working with individuals who have autism. So for me, though there may be some areas with that person that I can address, I feel like that they would be best suited to work with someone who has more experience and expertise that could best assist them.
That's a really good thing, because I think also with people who are newer to this space and just starting their therapy journey, that can be perceived as like a negative, or like something's really wrong with me. My therapist doesn't even want to work with me.
No.
So yeah, thank you for touching on that.
Yeah, no problem. It would be more detrimental for me to continue to work with someone, and I know that I can't provide them the best.
Mm-hmm. And that could also happen, like how I was saying, like how people should be interviewing their therapists. Is it true on the other side? Therapists are somewhat interviewing potential patients, correct?
Oh, definitely. I don't think that that's something that's talked about or like, yeah, it's something that people like to admit, but I definitely, especially in a private practice setting, we definitely interview and screen out and refer out.
Mm-hmm. It's a relationship, as we said, like it is two-way. And if you want the most productive sessions and like outcome, it has to be a fit on both ends. Like, I think, yeah, to your point, that's not talked about often. So I'm glad we were able to touch on it. So going back to the beginning. So I mentioned when I started down this journey, I was like overwhelmed with acronyms.
Yeah.
Can you talk to a couple of the big ones that you think people should know about and like look for?
Yeah. So we all have some sort of letters behind our name.
Mm-hmm. A lot of them.
So, yeah. And so some of those letters may be reflective of our degree areas. And so like mine, LCSW. So that just means licensed clinical social worker. So my degree is in social work. And then I went through the process to obtain my clinical license, essentially is what those letters mean. Also, letters may be different among the states. So that's something you have to consider because like I have my LCSW in Missouri, but I have my LSCSW in Kansas, which is essentially the same thing. It's just the licenses are different acronyms between the states. So ultimately, a lot of times the letters reflect our degree area. So you may see like a LMFT, which is a marriage and family therapist, or you may see a LPC, which is a professional counselor, things like that. You may also see special certifications that we may have. So like CCTP is another acronym or letters you may see behind my name. That means Certified Clinical Trauma Professional. That for me just means that I went and got further education and a special certification in doing trauma work. Mm-hmm. So the different letters mean different things, but ultimately they're probably related to either degree area, certifications and special training, things like that.
Awesome. So for this audience, as we were talking about burnout, stress, anxiety, depression, because they are all like in the same pot, are there certain ones that you think people should pay special attention to, or is it all fair game?
I mean, it's all fair game. Like I said, it just really depends. The letters are more so essentially related to degree area.
Got it.
So it's more so paying attention to like their specialized training and experience and modality base.
Got it. As long as it has an L in there, you need the license.
If they're identified through your insurance, they will be. So it's not, you don't have to essentially worry as much about that piece.
Mm. And then what about master's, doctoral versus other? Like, how does that impact treatment or anything?
You ask me, I would say it doesn't.
Oh, true.
It doesn't. So like for me, I have my master's degree, and that to me personally means that I have the education and the skill set to do this work. There are some that you may have, like a psychologist who mm-hmm. may be a PhD level psychologist. That means that they went further in their area. That's a difference too. So in like different areas, so, they may have more advanced degrees that mean different things. But for me, like my master's degree, I'm actually currently working on my PhD in social work. My PhD is going to prepare me for something completely different. It's not going to give me any extra experience or skill set in doing therapy. Mm-hmm. Okay. So to me, it doesn't really matter in the sense of, is a doctor level therapist better than a master's level therapist? No.
Okay. That is helpful. Yeah. I remember being overwhelmed. I'm just lucky I found you. I'm like, click A. So dig a little deeper. So one of the things we've talked about a couple times is like this idea of homework. So I am of the firm belief that therapy is the foundation of someone's mental wellness journey. Like by understanding where you came from, the connections, the experiences, that's how you can unpack and really unlock your future. But everything's not going to be solved in 50 minutes. Right. So can you speak to like what kind of quote unquote homework, as I call it, can people do outside of session to build on the foundation of their therapy sessions?
Yeah. So one may have more like structured homework, and that would be like, I would say, hey, I'm going to give you this homework and I want you to do this between now and the next time we meet. That's more like structured homework. It's very specific. But then there's like this general concept of homework, and that would be what I think that you're kind of talking about. Mm-hmm. So that's, exploring, outside of therapy, what's going on, what you notice, applying what you've learned in therapy to what goes on outside and how you're processing things, how you're working through things, how you're coping, making change. So actually like taking what you've learned and applying it outside and making that change and going through the ups and downs, because it's not going to be all good or, just straight up. It's going to be an ebb and flow. Mm-hmm. So being okay with that and learning how to navigate through the ebb and flow is definitely homework, the general homework that you do outside of therapy.
That's actually real.
To like your stressors, the generational things that are contributing to what's going on. It's more of a reflective process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. You hit the nail on the head on that one. Thank you for hitting on a couple points. Like, it is definitely a reflective process. I can say from my own personal experience, it is something you have to be cognizant of every day. Like, you can't just be like, I'm fixed. Because that's not going to happen. And your family and friends are going to tell you that's not going to happen. And that didn't happen. But you really hit on a point that I'm glad you already broached, is the fact that it's not going to be like easy all the time. It's not going to be a simple fix. Like, there's real stuff that you have to work through. There's stuff that you won't recognize that is there until you start talking about it. But it really can help and change your relationships and dynamics. Like, after a session we had a couple weeks ago, like, I came home, had a real conversation with my husband, and I thought it was going to be like one rosy picture. And he's just like unpacked a number of other things, which in the midst of it, I was like, what the hell? Like I thought this was a celebration moment, but it turned into what I deem as like marriage moments. But those are the real moments where it's like your relationships gets deeper. But it was because I was able to have conversations with you and understand some things of like what I was doing and how I respond to things and why I respond to things in certain ways, that it helped me discover or really understand what my husband had been saying to me for the past 11 years we've been together. And I'm like, oh. And it's like, you can hear someone, but it's really not until you understand yourself that you can understand what someone is saying. Like, there's a difference. Like, you can hear it, but do you understand it? And so I thank you for helping me understand it and like think through stuff. It has not been always rosy, and I still have avoidance of EMDR, but we gonna get there. We'll get, you just tricked me with the slinky, which I'm on to you. Maybe we'll talk about that another day if Felicia has his back. But can you speak to that? Like, what I starting to get concerned about is like, now that the conversation's growing around mental health, which is amazing, and people like therapy, sometimes it can come off as like a quick fix. Can you speak to like what the people should really expect?
Yeah, no, therapy is not a quick fix for anyone. And, not to deter, but I'm going to say this because it's true. Therapy sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Sometimes.
Yeah. And it's not because it sucks because it's bad. It sucks because it makes us feel. Mm. And we've made it through a lot of our life with not really feeling. Mm-hmm. We've numbed out or what we call compartmentalized. So just basically separated and don't focus on it. We disassociate. So we spend a lot of our lives not feeling. And so therapy reconnects those things, and you have to feel. Mm-hmm. And so, the things that we're going through don't feel good. That's why we work so hard to not feel them. So therapy sucks, but it's okay, because the only way that we can work through things is if we feel them. That's the whole kind of like purpose. It's like, let me help you feel it and then learn how to cope with it. And now we can actually make some progress.
Thank you. I'm glad you said it and I have to say it. I'm like, this sucks today. But it's a moment in time rather than life will always suck. Like you can get through those moments and make the rest of life better.
Yeah.
Or improve on it at least. Yeah, that's real. It's funny because I had a conversation with people as I've been like talking about some of the positioning with my brand and like, how do we want to approach it? And I'm like, I'm trying to be real. Like this shit is not fun sometimes. Like, I mean, like, I don't know if I want a session next week because I want to avoid what we're supposed to be talking about. I'm not being the serious this week. This is past weeks, but it's going to suck. But it's to your point, like we go through life just functioning and just doing and moving and going. And so many times you're like, I'll deal with it later. I'll deal with it later. And then you look and 5 years have gone by and you never dealt with it. 5 more years, 10 years go by, you got a kid that's reflecting everything that you said you were going to work on. So it's like, come on, like now is the time. And what I'm really excited about, one, there's a conversation and now people are getting more open. There's still a stigma. But what I'm excited by is like seeing my own personal journey and like how I've started to impact like my circles. Like I didn't what really was like, oh, I need to get this shit together. One, we're talking about families, but also like I have a niece who is in her 20s and she has started a organization that's amazing that helps young women with stress and anxiety and just growing up in the city. And so I had an opportunity to speak at it. And in my intro, she mentioned how I was a huge influence to her. And I was like, that's amazing. Didn't think like, it's one of those things I just go through life and I forget that I'm achieving and doing things that are good. Because I'm always like, well, what else? What's next? What else do I have to check? And so towards the end of that day, I was just listening to her talk about all the stuff she's working on and all the things she's balancing and this and this and that. And I'm like, oh, I see this bad trait in myself that is now reflected in my niece. And it's like, what can I change to illustrate, like, you have to stop sometime. Like, you have to juggling everything and like trying to do the most. It's actually not a great place to be. Like, it is how I was raised. It is how I'm built and what I am actively trying to start changing a little bit and putting more balance because I'm seeing it manifest in ways that I'm like, oh, she's going to burn out years before I do if this keeps up. And so it's like, how do you stop? How do you make a moment? How do you appreciate and recognize what you've already achieved and celebrate that before working on the next thing? So it's like those type of things and how you can influence your community right around you. Like our conversations really helped me bring some things back to my family. And this has been a very challenging year as my dad has been sick and like our lives have changed since February. And it's like, that was on top of overall work stress. And it's like, life has happened. This is my time. In this past 2 years, I'm realizing life happens to everyone because I am experiencing it in full color. And I've been blessed. I recognize that it took me this long to like get this type of experience. And I fully recognize it and appreciate that this is all I've had to deal with life, but it's real. And so it's what our conversations have allowed me to do is have really important conversations with my family in very key moments that before I would have never been able to do. And then we continue to just go and never start to have those conversations, never break down those walls that have been there for years, never have those very tough, real family moments of like, why doesn't so-and-so talk to so-and-so? Who is this sibling that I don't know? Like, what the hell is going on over here? Like those things that happen in so many of our families, but for some reason we think they're magically going to disappear if we don't talk about it. So I thank you for that. Bringing us back to why we're like with one of the things about like taking a break. So what do you think about the idea of like Hooky Days and like, why do you think Hooky Days are important? And like, you've been a huge supporter of it as I started to talk about it. So thank you. Hooky Day 2019, October 22nd. So what's your thought from a therapeutic point of view?
From a therapeutic point of view, it's a must. Especially as we're talking about like burnout and prevention of burnout and like just general self-care, we have what I would consider to some form of degree this trait of like you've talked about, this hardworking, you know, we'll hear ourselves always say like, we have to work 10 times harder to get the same response as someone who is of the dominant race and dominant gender. And then we also have this trauma response of perfectionism, you know, whether that's slavery trauma response or a combination of just other cultural factors, family factors that contribute to this idea of perfectionism and working hard. Those things burn us out. Mm-hmm. They make us feel less than. They make us feel like we're not good enough, that we have to work harder, that we don't deserve breaks. And that just really just continues to magnify everything else that we have going on. So we have to take breaks. We have to rest. You know, I myself definitely find myself in those same boxes of like doing too much, always have my hand in 10 buckets and being stressed out and overworked, and it's hard. And I actually found myself in a place like that this week too, in a place that was like, okay, I just needed to stop. And I did that. I kind of took like a hooky day yesterday unintentionally, but it was just one of those things that I needed it. Yeah. Because, you know, the day before it was any little thing and I was in tears. Yep. No rational reason. It was just like, I saw this meme that I was telling you on Facebook, and it was like, I dropped my keys and I'm bawling, crying. Like, what's going on? And so it was just, it was really needed for me, but we have to recognize that we have to take that time to ourselves. We have to recharge. We have to do things that bring us energy if we want to continue to do whatever it is that we want to do.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing your part of the story too. That's real. And so what I'm really hoping, I pray to God with Hooky Day, like even if I get 10 people to take the day off, which I already have 5 spoken for, I'm excited, or more than 5, but it's like, just take a day. Just take a day. Take it for whatever you need. The reason I picked like a random Tuesday is exactly for that reason. It's random. It is a regular day. On the weekends, we say we're going to take a break. Half the time we don't. Like and right now it's a whole thing about self-care Saturday, self-care Sunday. And it's always as amazing as I love a like face mask and a massage. Like sometimes it's not what I need. Sometimes it's a matter of just sitting still. Yeah. Just not doing what you're quote unquote supposed to do and do what you need to do, which is like focus on you. So I'm really hoping to encourage people. And it's once again, not a matter of like, I don't believe in hard work. Like, as you can hear by my story, I believe in it a little too much. Like, but I do believe in and live by the new mantra of work hard, self-care harder. Because if you don't do that, like if you're not doing the self-care part, like your work will be in vain. You are going to burn out at some point. You are going to collapse. And no matter what you do, you are never going to be able to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Like it's going to be 10 times harder to get to that. So Hooky Day is just the start. It's like take a small break, even if it's a matter of a moment, even if it's a matter of you can't do October 22nd, that's fine. Like why I'm trying to do it as a community is because there's this guilt that's associated with it. Like I do not understand it. And I've been through it myself. And it took for me to be like, I'm breaking down at 2:30 in the morning for me to say, I got to stop this shit. Like, this is not okay. And even though I see my coworkers out there grinding, I'm like, but if this is what you choose to do, that's your business. But what I'm not going to choose to do is give my entire life to a company that will replace me in a fucking day. In a day, my job would be posted. And so it really took for me to like break and my husband to be like, I am worried about you. Just take a step back and be like, what can I start doing? And so I waited a little too long in the game. And so mine became we can talk about that another time, but I ended up taking leave for a couple of weeks because I wasn't taking a day here or there, because I was really bad at prioritizing myself. And so I'm really just trying to put a light on like small intentional things that you can do. Like we have vacation days. Like if you don't take them, you're leaving money on the table, which is the funny thing to me.
But it's interesting because like what I can say is you identified that, okay, this is not okay. You identified that I need to do something different. I need some time off. But the unfortunate part is that a lot of us don't get to that point, or definitely get to that point without like therapy. I have someone right now who the struggle is that, well, if I need to do those things, then that means that I'm too weak.
Yep.
Like there should be no
Girl.
reason that I need to take time off. I should be able to push through and get this done, or push through and do all of these things. I should be able to do this and not be tired. And I'm like, that's not reality. That's not logical. You are a person. You are human.
Yeah.
And it is okay to need a break. It is okay to need time off.
Yep. I was that for many years. Like, but just keep grinding. Like, that's it. You'll work your way out of it. But that's the very reason you're in it. And it's not like I'm starting to get frustrated with the idea of like, work smarter, not harder. You'd be like, I am smart. Like,
right.
I just got too much shit to do. Like,
yeah, like me being smarter in any way, if possible, is not even going to change the workload. Like,
right.
Two things don't match.
Right. And there's so many of us in high performance environments, and they're like, we know what we're signing up for. It's not a matter of like, oh my God, I can't believe I have all this work to do. No.
Right.
If you are in it, you hopefully are well aware what you're signing up for, but it's only up to you to figure out that balance and figure out how you're going to manage through it, because you are going to just drop one day. Like, if you are like, for me, I was always the one at the office late, or like taking my laptop, and I work at home all the time. But it became a matter of like, what was it? It was twice, because I'm a 2-time burnout survivor. And that's only the second time because I didn't fully fix it the first time, which, yeah, that's the thing. If you don't fix it, you'll never fully recover. And then it's like, then everybody's going to get on your nerves, and your tolerance is going to be extremely low, and you're never going to be able to produce what you know you can produce. And then if you're like me in type A, it becomes a cycle of like, oh, I have high expectations. Oh, I can't deliver. Oh, I suck. Oh, I have high expectations. I can't deliver. No, I really suck. And it's just like this self-perpetuating cycle that if you don't do something different, you will stay in it. Yeah. You will stay in it. I just really want people to recognize it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength. Yes. It's like, go against the grain. If people want to burn out, let them burn out. Like, if you are the one that has the balance, you will be the one that's performing. It's really interesting. And so many companies give us these benefits, and we as a culture don't leverage them. Right. And it's sometimes it is the company. Sometimes the companies don't really support it. Yes. But sometimes the companies are like, I made it available, but I'm not gonna like screw your arms for you to do it, or twist your arm for you to use it. Like, and I got into one of those situations where it caused me to take a step back, because I, for some reason, for a second, had this expectation of like, why didn't someone tell me that I was burning out? Or why didn't someone do this? And it's like, that's not their job. That is not their job. And so it really took me to say that, like, there was a point in time where I was like, I knew I wasn't delivering what I needed to do, at least at my standard. And so I had some real conversations, and people were like, hey, I need X, Y, and Z by this date. What's going on? Like, whatever. And so there are signs that people are concerned, but no one's going to tell you, you need to take a day, or that's going to be rare. That is going to be rare. Like, your journey is your own. Your career is yours to manage. Your mental health is yours to manage and yours to repair, improve, and strengthen. And if you don't do anything about it, you cannot be mad at everybody else around you. But that is how you're going to feel, is that everyone else sucks. So I will get off my soapbox. We're going to take a quick break so Felicia can pay some bills, and then we'll dig into our last topic, Kortney's specialty areas about trauma, and how trauma may not always come in the package you believe that it should come in.
Hey guys, I just want to share with you an email I got this week from one of my listeners. It says, "Hi Felicia, I wanted to reach out to you to say thank you. Back in May, I did a coaching call with you, and you really let me know that I wasn't getting what I was worth at blank company. I was having issues with my boss, and it only got worse after our call. I got my resume updated as you suggested and began putting feelers out. Long story short, I will be starting my new job as a senior marketing manager, yes, a leadership role at blank new company, in a week, making a great salary that is appropriate for an MBA. I really have to thank you for letting me know what I was missing out on. staying at one company for so long. Thanks again. This is the feedback I live for, you guys. This is why I do this show. This is what you should be getting out of this show. The encouragement, the inspiration, and the motivation to continue on your career journey and to make moves and to climb the corporate ladder. That is the goal. There's no Black women CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. Why not you? Okay? So have a great week and stay encouraged. If you need anything, email me at ask@trillandba.com. Please go to Apple Podcasts and leave a review, or leave a review on Spotify or wherever you listen to this show. I love you guys. Have a great week.
All right, welcome back to the Trill MBA podcast. In our last segment about burnout, stress, therapy, cookie days, and prioritizing one's mental health. So I wanted to touch on the topic of trauma, because this is something that's really near and dear to me, because I always had this thought of trauma. Whenever someone says trauma, I automatically was like, oh, I didn't have any trauma. Like, I think the guard goes up because it feels severe. And I've always, in recognizing that others have had more severe mental challenges or challenges to their mental health, that I have retreated in the corner and said, oh, what I have isn't that bad. Oh, this is just normal life, so on and so forth. And what we unpacked recently is like, there were elements of trauma that I didn't recognize because it comes with this expectation of severity. So can you speak a little bit about trauma and how it can be different than some people assume?
Yeah. So oftentimes when we talk about trauma, people automatically go to, like you said, the severe. People think about like war vets, sometimes police officers, victims of like severe like crime and assault. That's where their mind goes to when they think of trauma. But trauma essentially, like in its smallest form, is anything that overwhelms the brain's ability to cope. So what that looks like is us avoiding something, whether that's a person, whether that's a place, whether that's a situation, a task. That's what trauma looks like. Trauma looks like constant stress, constant anxiety, struggles to sleep. We're always feeling tired and fatigued, those kind of things. Trauma responses, they come out in so many different ways. A lot of times our body reacts to something a certain way and we don't know why. Mm-hmm. It's probably a trauma response that we've compartmentalized. So trauma is not always this severe scale. You know, I was telling someone that there were some Army jets that flew over a building that I was in the other day, and they were so close and so loud that my body had like this immediate response. And though I'm not 100% sure as to why my body had that response, I have an idea. Mm-hmm. But, you know, then that goes back to like a trauma response. And sometimes too, what we have to think about is that trauma isn't necessarily something that happens directly to us. It could be something that, you know, happens to someone else and we've, you know their story or heard their story, or we work with people and we all hear, you know, their traumas all of the time, or we watch the news and we see all of the bad stuff that happens on the news. And so we become, you know, we develop trauma responses to those type of things and don't even notice it. Or when things are just our unfortunate norm. So I talk to people all the time about like hearing sirens in your neighborhood all the time is not normal. Mm-hmm. You know, but we normalize things like that when we grow up in environments as such.
Interesting.
Yeah, or like when you are in a volatile and like a domestic violence relationship, we start to normalize and self-blame. Mm-hmm. And so people might not identify those things as trauma. Or when we are witnesses to domestic violence in our household, it becomes normal and we avoid it. We avoid setting the person off. We want to be close to the person to protect ourselves, but because it becomes our norm, we don't identify it as trauma.
You hit a lot of hit on a lot of really good points there. The one that was really interesting, we started to talk about the other week was like trauma through proxy.
Yes.
Yeah, because like, especially in this day and age, like there are things that are happening to us every single day that we do not realize are trauma, like especially for people of color. Yes. Oh my goodness, that's an episode in itself.
It is.
Yeah, especially right now, that's why I'm like, please go to therapy, people. Like there are things affecting you every day. And like, you cannot, as strong as you are, it is very hard to manage this by yourself. And once again, people go to school to have these conversations. They're experts to help you through this type of stuff. And as simple as like, I joke about it, but it's real. Like I had to stop watching SVU at night because that's real. And there's only so many episodes of a woman getting raped or somebody like coming into someone's bedroom door or someone's apartment that like affects you. My husband is like, right. You're on the 4th floor. Why are you worried about locking doors? I'm like, well, Benson told me to be safe and lock my door. Detective Benson said, like, I think that could be an element of trauma. And I've talked to a number of female friends who are like, yeah, I don't watch SVU anymore.
Yeah.
But it's on every weekend. I did start picking up, but only during the daytime. Thank you for that one. That one is big. And like, I've found my thought, and tell me if this is correct, like trauma is one of those things that like live with you forever. And if you do not discover it, it can impact so much of your life and like relationships. Yeah. So do you think that one's very accurate?
I do. And I tell people all the time, because sometimes people come to therapy and think that, it's going to be fixed and they'll never be triggered again. And I tell people all the time, no, that's not the case. It's not that you won't be triggered again. It's that hopefully through therapy, you'll be able to identify when you are triggered, why you're triggered, and then you'll be able to cope with it in a more effective manner.
That's real. And I'll put myself out there. So there's one thing that we worked through, and like, this was like real. I was one of those, like I sat back, that meme, I forgot the dude from, was it The Wire, where he's like, oh shit, like that one, and that GIF. And so we talked the other week about my challenges with communication at times, especially with my husband, and how I'll shut down if I start crying in a relationship. And we got to a point where we recognized there was a relationship I had eons ago that whenever I started to cry, because that's how I communicate sometimes when you're hurting my feelings, who would have thunk it, that I like, he had responded and said, why are you always crying? Like, I don't want to talk because you always be crying and shit, like stuff in that degree. And so to me, that's an old relationship. I've worked past that. My husband is amazing and never does anything in that space. But it took for me until a few weeks ago to realize like my challenges communicating with him during those very tense, real moments where we need to have discussion, I was shut down because of remembering or the trauma that was associated with relationships in the past where that was not well received. And so that was like amazing to me because my husband was like, I just want to talk. Like, we need to talk through this. And he's trying to communicate. And I'm just like, the communication is bad to me. Like, and so like, thank you. Like, that's one of those things that people overlook because you're like, oh, that relationship, I'm over it. Like, I don't care about him or her or them no more. Like, yeah.
But those things that they did to us in that relationship still follow us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I thought, they weren't great relationships, but I was like, oh, I was never abused. So you don't think anything about it. Like, and so thank you for touching on that, because trauma, I think, is something real and like something that's overlooked, and the long-term implications of all of our interactions, I think, are heavily overlooked. So we need to wrap up. I'm realizing we've been talking. We could talk all day, girl. And pay you for my sessions. But what is one thing you think therapists wish people knew about therapy?
I think that we've actually touched on it, that it's not a quick fix. I think that is a big thing. And then another big thing, which is separate but similar, is that if it's a family issue, that one person engaged in therapy is not going to fix the family issue.
Oh, boy. Okay. You can fix you and work on you, but you can't fix everybody.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that is awesome. Thank you so much, Kortney, for your time.
No problem.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So thank you. So as we wrap up, just want to call special attention. Once again, Hooky Day 2019, the first official Hooky Day. Get your friends, get your out of office ready, put your PTO in the system. You can check us out and learn more about it on hookywellness.com. Take the pledge that you'll take off this day for Hooky Day, and you'll get our newsletter weekly with more mental health education, transparency on what to expect in therapy, tips on what to do on your day off. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Hooky Wellness. And then Felicia will be back next week with more gems on how to manage your career and to make this money. So you guys have a good one. And thank you for having me. Once again, Erayna Sargent, Hooky Wellness. Let's make change and get to a better place. All right, have a good one.
The Trill MBA Show is a Fair World Corp. LLC production. Executive produced by Felicia and Rose Inuha. Sound design and editing by Chris Mann with Podshaper. Theme music is Kick Push by Ryan Little. Keep it Trill every day, y'all.